Hello everybody.
Welcome to our Battle for Zendikar limited primer for your pre-release experience.
Pre-release is coming up. Battle for Zendikar is coming out as we record this. The pre-release is in 3 days time.
Yep.
So what we like to do before every set comes out is we do a little video just kind of to give you an idea of what's going to be happening in the new format. So you're not going in cold, opening your packs on your pre-release day and going, what the hell are all these cards? What do I do with them?
So the system we have set up here is I can look up cards as we talk about them. So say Eldrazi Devastator.
Yeah.
I just type it in and it pops up there. So that means that there's always going to be a card on the screen.
Yeah, and also sometimes when we go to look for a card, you'll flick through other cards really quickly. Yeah. It's just so Dennis doesn't have to edit. But yeah, so what we like to do is now, few disclaimers. We don't go through the whole set in detail. No. It's just a few ideas, directions you can be looking.
Things to keep in mind.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff.
We also are often wrong. And
I don't want to say often, but we've
been wrong. Like, everyone who does these kind of things before anyone's played with the cards is going to make mistakes. Because a lot of it is context. Things become more powerful and less powerful as, you know, people figure out where they go and what they're good against. So, again, take this with a grain of salt. It's just ideas where you can be looking when you open your packs and start building your sealed deck.
Exactly.
So where we like to start is with the mechanics discussion. Okay.
So the first one you have down is Awaken.
That's true. Awaken is a new mechanic in Battle for Zendikar.
So let's look at Coastal Discovery as an example of Awaken.
Good idea.
Coastal Discovery costs 3 and a blue and lets you draw 2 cards.
Right. So what's that card called? Inspiration? Although no, that's
an instant.
But this is bad divination.
Yes, but you can pay 5 and a blue and you get Awaken 4, which means you choose a land you control and it becomes a creature and you put 4+1/+1 counters on it.
Technically it happens in the other order.
True.
That's sometimes relevant.
Not during the resolution of the effect.
It can be relevant.
Why?
I don't want to start getting into weird corner cases, but hardened scales is the answer.
That's true. That's true, yeah.
But yeah, no, 3 and a blue, draw 2 cards. Now, Awaken's always formatted as Awaken N cost.
So Awaken 4, 5 and a blue in this case.
Exactly, it's always formatted like that. And the cost is an alternative casting cost. And what you do is you can either just play 3 and a blue and get the draw 2 cards effect, or if you play the 6, you also get the Awaken effect.
You can awaken onto a land that's already a creature.
You can, and there's some weird rules corner cases that you might want to keep in mind. Things like if you're awakening with a spell like Coastal Discovery that doesn't have a target. Awakening gives the spell a single target, which means if the land is destroyed at instant speed, or if it's already a creature
and
land,
it's killed,
you actually won't get to draw 2 cards at all, because the spell
will fizzle.
What do you think of Awaken, Dennis? Do you think it's powerful?
I think it's nice. I don't know how powerful it is. Like, obviously, I think 6 mana 4/4 that draws 2 cards, which is essentially what this is.
Yep.
Is great.
Very strong.
That's a very strong card.
So,
and the ability to cast it for 4 mana draw 2 is also very good.
Exactly. So if you played with things like Morph, Bestow is another example, Kicker.
Yep.
Anything like that that allows you to play a spell for cheap early on, or when you have more mana, get a bigger effect. They're all very powerful effects because it smooths your curve nicely. It helps to mitigate the effects of flooding, and especially when you're turning your extra lands into creatures.
And that diverse... Oh, we should note that when a land becomes a creature, it can still tap for mana.
And also gains haste. This is a nice little rules change for people who play Magic Online, because there've been a lot, like things like Koth in the past. If you animate the land you played that turn, which is very hard to figure out on Magic Online which one that is. If you animate the land you played that turn, it will have Summoning Sickness.
Whereas in paper, you can just say, oh no, that was the mountain I played.
Yeah. So this just prevents all that little rules awkwardness where it just says it doesn't matter whether you played it this turn or not.
Because it gets haste, yeah.
But yeah, I think Awaken's a very nice mechanic. I think it's going to play well. It's just nice to have mana sinks.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice to have little effects that smooth your draw and modal effects.
And big mana is kind of a key theme of the set.
Exactly. Next I have Landfall written down.
So...
Scythe Panther?
Rasa Ranger or Scythe, yeah.
Scythe Panther, something like that. Landfall's back. Landfall is a fairly straightforward mechanic. It was in the original Zendikar. It's just... Landfall is not a keyword. It's an ability word, unlike Awaken.
Which means it doesn't actually really mean anything.
If you see, the word Landfall, like target creature gains Landfall, doesn't mean anything at all.
No.
Landfall is just a collection of abilities that all trigger when a land enters the battlefield.
Like Raid was.
Yeah, exactly. Landfall is just effects that trigger when a land enters the battlefield. In this case, it's a trigger that you can pay for to put counters on Marassa Ranger. Sometimes it's gain some life, sometimes it's put a counter on something, sometimes it's gain +1/+1 till end of turn.
It's a bunch of stuff.
It doesn't really matter. Things to note: it's when a land enters the battlefield, not necessarily when you play a land. Exactly. So
Evolving Wild.
if you have multiple land drops for the turn, cool, but it also works with fetch lands, which are in the format, kind of. And Evolving Wilds.
So if you Evolving Wild and immediately crack it, that is 2 separate landfall triggers.
Exactly. It's not just using your land drop. Very nice mechanic. Again, helps mitigate the effects of flood.
Because you get some degree of benefit from your lands.
Exactly. It means, when you're top decking and you draw a land, you're not going, oh.
It's slightly less useless.
Yeah. Still though. Nice mechanic. Always played well in Zendikar. It makes the game, it's like you say, like, it feels bad when you're top decking and you draw a land.
But it makes it feel a little less bad.
And that's always fun. Is there anything you want to say about landfall?
Not really, I think that's okay.
Cool.
It's pretty simple.
Next thing I have is Rally.
Ally. So what's a Rally card?
Core Blade Whirl is the one I have written down.
Core Blade Whirl. There she is.
So Core Blade Whirl, this is allies are back, and this time they've given them an ability word. So all the allies from the old Zendikar, allies were creatures that had the creature type ally, and would say something like, when card name or another ally enters the battlefield, thing.
Yeah, and this is quite similar.
So this is, exactly. Rally is just a keyword or an ability word that's grouping these allies together.
So when Core Blade Whirl or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, all creatures you control gain first strike in the turn.
So there's a few major differences now between the allies from Battle for Zendikar and the allies from original Zendikar. The allies from original Zendikar all triggered... their effects would all mostly affect your other allies.
Whereas this affects all your stuff.
Exactly. Which means, if anyone who's listening played original Zendikar, the allies deck, like, if you were in the allies deck, you wanted as many allies as you can get. If you weren't in the allies deck, they were unplayable.
Whereas
unless they had good vanilla test.
That's the thing now, that happens a lot, there's a lot more often. I can't think of any examples right now, but the word ally is on just a bunch of random cards.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
Also, it affects all of your creatures.
Not just your allies.
So
this card is a 2-mana 2/2 that gives all your creatures first strike when it enters the battlefield.
And if you have other allies,
it happens again.
So it's a very snowbally type thing. The more allies you can get, the better. But the good ones, just pick them up, which is going to make the ally deck tricky to do. Because that's just a great card.
Yeah, that's just a solid card.
Yeah, 2-mana 2/2 on its own is fine. In the late game, it's got some utility because it gives you guys first strike. There's some other ones that gives them haste and that kind of thing. But yeah, so they're just solid cards on their own. So trying to build a critical mass of allies deck is going to be tricky.
But it's also less important.
Exactly. So it's a nice little mechanic. Tribal themes are always fun, I think. It's always nice when you can build these kind of linear archetypes. Not when they're all over the set, like Modern Masters or something like that.
Where it's too compartmentalized, yeah.
Exactly. But when there are linear archetypes that you can push towards, that I think that makes for a nice draft dynamic, in my opinion.
So what's after Rally?
After Rally, I have Devoid.
Devoid. So what's a Devoid card, Oisin?
Go with Dominator Drone.
Dominator Drone.
This is spoiling the next mechanic, but still.
Here. Turn Against is a Devoid card.
Turn Against.
So Turn Against costs 4 and a red. Hey, well, Oisin, that means it's a red card, doesn't it?
No!
Because it's got Devoid, which means this card has no colour in all zones.
Yeah, it's like, the old Suspend card, or things like Pacts.
Yeah.
Would have little colour dots on them that would indicate that even though Summoner's Pact doesn't have any green mana symbols in its mana cost because it doesn't have it's 0.
It's a green card.
It's a green card.
This is basically the opposite.
It's saying even though it's costs red mana to cast, it doesn't have any colours.
Right, which is relevant because there's cards that make colourless spells cheaper. There's cards that pay you whenever you cast a colourless spell. There's cards that care about colourless creatures.
Exactly.
All that stuff.
It's a fairly straightforward thing. You do still have to pay red for it. You still have to pay red mana even though it's colourless. You can't just throw it in your blue-white deck. Oh, it's colourless. No, it doesn't work.
There are actual fully colourless cards in the set that that you can just chuck around.
Yeah.
Like any
there's a lot of them. But yeah, Devoid, like, there's going to be some little synergies with Devoid. Again, you mentioned what's the card called?
The blue-red.
Herald of Kozilek.
Herald of Kozilek, yeah.
Herald of Kozilek makes all your colorless spells cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're drafting, you can, if you pick up a Herald of Kozilek, say you're in blue-red, you might pick Devoid cards a little higher.
And again, Herald of Kozilek, even though he's blue-red, is still also Devoid.
I want to mention, I really like Devoid as a mechanic.
You do?
Yeah, and the reason for that is, I mentioned I like Tribal.
Mm-hmm.
Something like the ally mechanic, there's the word in design for that is it's a little bit parasitic.
Because it only cares about cards that are essentially within its own set.
Exactly. There's no real allies outside of Battle for Zendikar and Zendikar.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like about Devoid is it does the whole tribal thing well. There's a lot of interactions with colorless creatures and spells in the set, but there are also colorless creatures outside of Devoid creatures.
So the thing is, it's not so much the Devoid cards that you like, it's the cards that pay you off for the Devoid cards that are less parasitic.
Yeah, and it just means you get a nice little tribal feel without being very insular. Yeah. I think it's very nicely done. I think it's very elegant.
I don't like the way they look.
The frames.
I don't like the washed out way they look. Like, if you look at Turn Against, that doesn't look like a red card to me.
That's going to be confusing during the draft.
It's not. I mean, it's not that confusing because you just know that it's a red card. But at first glance, it makes it a little more annoying. Yeah. It's. I think it's less of a deal for you because you're not good with colors anyway. No. So you know by the symbols.
Yeah.
I'm usually just looking at it and going, "Oh, it's a red card. I'm not in red." Yeah.
Right. Okay. But yeah. Speaking of Turn Against, by the way,
stupid. This is Ray of Command.
Ray of Command is 3 and a blue for the same effect.
Yeah.
The big reason it's insane is the word instant there in the left hand corner. You can steal things and untap them during blocks during attackers to trade for their other attackers.
So say you attack me with 2 4/4s, I can steal one of your 4/4s, block your other 4/4, and they both die.
Yeah, so watch out for that card. That's one that's going to lead to a lot of blowouts, and it's also going to be a very, very, very high pick.
Because it's just insane.
There are also just big colorless cards that you can play in the format. Things like, what's it called? Breaker of Armies.
Breaker of Armies is an 8 mana 10/8 uncommon, where all creatures that are able to block it must.
So there's, regardless of the Devoid cards, there are things that interact with colorless creatures as well. The Devoid cards will be interacted with by those, but also the big colorless bombs and the little colorless role players are going to be affected by that as well. Breaker of Armies is one of the few cards, uncommons, that are just massive.
And you can put it in any deck, strictly speaking.
That's the thing. So those are going to go very quickly in the draft because, especially in pack 1, they keep you open while being very powerful.
And there's also colorless ramp. Doesn't like Hedron Archive?
Yeah.
You can just put this in any deck. It's a 4 mana artifact that taps for 2, which normally doesn't sound very good.
Nope.
But is actually fine, and you can pay 2 and sack it to draw 2 cards.
Which is very good.
That's 6 mana, draw 2 cards.
Yeah, but also, like, once you don't need the ramp anymore,
exactly,
you can get rid of it. So the next mechanic I have is Converge.
Converge.
Which is sort of weirdly Devoid, sort of weird opposite.
What's a Converge card?
Converge card I have as... Did I write one down? I apparently did not write down a Converge card.
I'm going to find a Converge card.
I'll find one here.
Okay.
But yeah, Converge is basically... It's another ability word.
Here we go. Brilliant Spectrum.
Brilliant Spectrum, sure.
3 and a blue for a sorcery.
Incidentally, terrible card.
Yeah. 3 and a blue for a sorcery, and you draw X cards, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast Brilliant Spectrum.
Right.
Then discard 2 cards. Jeez.
Yeah, so at best, you draw 4 digital.
I'll be honest, I didn't even see the then discard 2 cards, and I didn't like this. I'm serious.
Yeah.
So it's always going to draw at least 1, because you have to pay the blue.
Yep.
But if you pay, 2 blue and 2 red, you draw 2 cards. You play 2 blue, 1 red, and 1 green, you draw 3 cards, so on and so forth.
And then you discard 2. That card's atrocious.
That's really terrible.
But anyway, Converge, it always cares about the number of colors spent to cast it. Some things to note with, I think, one exception, you can't, say it's a 3-drop, you can't spend 4 colors of mana on it.
You can't dump more mana into it, no.
Yeah, barring weird, like, Thalia type situations and that kind of thing.
Which does work. Yeah,
Thalia, but that's not going to be relevant in limited, you know? Yeah, I think the way I've been looking at the Converge cards while I've been doing, like, going through the spoiler and kind of seeing what's good, what's not, I think you can play 3 colors in this format. I think the fixing's there, and you can definitely splash. And there's a lot of good reasons to splash.
What makes you think the fixing is there?
The fixing, I mean, you've got, like, the instant speed rampant growth, you've got Evolving Wilds, you've got all the rare lands, you've got all the man lands, or both of the man lands. There's that elf that taps for any colour. The 3 mana 2-1. There's some reasons.
That seems more like splashing to me than playing outright 3-color.
I think you can. I think there's a lot of good reasons to splash in this format. There's a couple of very, very powerful gold cards. Things like what's it called?
What's the blue-black one?
Ulamog's Nullifier. Very, very powerful card, and spoiling one of our other mechanics. But it's like there's a lot of good reasons to splash, and if you're splashing already, then the Converge can be good. But the point I was going to make is, when you're looking at Converge cards, I tend to read them as X equals 2.
Right, because you're mostly going to be playing a 2-color deck.
Yeah.
And I don't think having Converge cards is a reason to chuck other random lands into your deck.
Unless, say, for example, you have a...
If you're splashing, go for it.
If you're playing a 2-color deck and you're like, should I play this Evolving Wilds?
I still don't like it.
I still wouldn't put in the other basic.
I still don't like putting in the other basic, yeah.
No, that's probably not as good. But yeah, it's like... there are a lot of good reasons to splash in the set. And Converge sometimes helps with that. But I think, in general, if you read them as X equals 2, a lot of them are fairly playable cards anyway. Except that one.
Yeah, that's one we looked at, yeah.
But, yeah, I think if you look at them like that and tend to... Just bear in mind, if you're playing on Magic Online especially, what lands you're tapping.
Right.
Be very careful about that, and it's going to matter like what lands you leave up, that kind of thing.
Hey Oisin,
yeah.
Ulamog's Nullifier says I should put cards my opponents own from exile into the graveyard. Where the hell are they going to get somebody carrying cards in exile?
You might play some cards with Ingest on them.
What's that do?
Ingest, so something like a Dominator drone has Ingest. Ingest is just, it's actually a keyword this time that says when it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of their library.
And then cards like the one we just looked at, the Nullifier.
Processors, they're called.
Processors. Eat those.
Yeah. I think, taking a break from mechanics here, flavor-wise, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a flavor nerd thing for a little while. There's this whole thing where, I think Ugin mentioned it in one of the stories, where all of the Eldrazi are actually just kind of like bits of the Titans. So... if Ulamog's the only one left on Zendikar, then all of the Eldrazi on Zendikar are just bits of Ulamog, which means Ulamog is eating things and digesting them, but it's all happening in different places on the oh, it's so cool. It's so cool.
In Zendikar, the exile zone isn't just an extra graveyard. It's kind of like the void of this unspeakable horror.
It's Ulamog's stomach,
where only the Eldrazi reign.
Yeah,
and then when he can snap you back into reality, into your death.
Yeah.
And eke a little bit of value out of you.
Exactly. So things like
the Nullifier.
Ulamog's Despoiler is another good example, and it's also a good example of colorless uncommon bombs.
Yeah, some 6 mana isn't even that much. I'd play a 6 mana 5/5.
Yep.
I'd play a 6 mana 9/9
I'd play
all
that
day
100% of the time. So the idea is, as an additional cost for certain abilities, you can put cards from exile into their graveyard.
Now there are a lot of cards that also incidentally exile stuff.
Yeah, you got things like Touch of the Void.
So Touch of the Void is just a 3 mana burn spell, but instead of killing it exiles it.
Exactly. The green fight spell, and Natural Aggression, does a similar thing.
Again, a normal fight spell, but it exiles it instead. Titan's Presence, I believe.
Titan's Presence. Another good reason to pick up colorless creatures.
There's the black removal spell, whose name I don't remember.
Grip of Desolation.
Grip of Desolation. Exiles it. And the land, that exiles 2 things. That's straight in for your Nullifier.
So, if you have any number of removal like this, if you have... there's that... I didn't write this one down, but it's a 3 mana black spell that exiles a card from their graveyard, makes a Scion, and draws a card. If you have a couple of those in your deck, you can pretty reasonably play processors that only process 1.
Plus, I mean, cards like Titan's Presence
are also just really good.
Which you'd be playing. The Burn one, which you mentioned.
Yeah.
A Natural Selection, you'll just be playing a Aggression. Sorry, a Natural Selection is a Muse song. A Natural Aggression, you'll just be playing.
Stasis Snare.
Stasis Snare again, also, which is interesting because it doesn't.
If they have enchant removal, they can't get it back if you've already processed it. It's cool.
Yeah. This is incidentally a great card.
Yeah, very, very.
But this kind of effect would enchantments that exile happen all the time. But this counts. You can process this.
Yep,
that's totally fine.
Now, a lot of the processors have very powerful effects if you manage to get them off.
A lot of them are also kind of okay
on their own.
Poor phrasing. But they're kind of fine otherwise as well.
Yeah.
Like the Despoiler, case in point.
Exactly.
6 mana 5/5, not the end of the world at all.
Nope.
Especially if you're getting it out with some Scions.
Yeah.
So if we have Call the Scions... Wait a second, Oisin, I thought Eldrazi spawn were 0/1s. What's going on?
They've grown up, Dennis. Eldrazi Scions are made by a lot of cards in the set. They're 1/1s, and they have... Well... Eldrazi Scion is technically just a creature type, but all of the Eldrazi Scion that are made by cards in this set have
sacrifice to add 1 mana to your mana pool,
and they're 1/1s now, not 0/1s, so they can actually
attack and block and stuff.
In a set where you're trying to ramp to big colorless things, or even just big things,
there's a world where you cast this on turn 3, and then you cast a 9/9 Despoiler the following turn. You'll have to process 2 things beforehand, but say you have this, that's totally plausible.
Yep. That's pretty serious. Turn 4 9/9, hard to beat.
With commons and uncommons.
Yeah.
3-card combo.
But still. So Scions, they're just very useful. You want pretty much as many of them as you can get if you have enough payoff for them.
They're just solid cards, yeah.
A lot of the cards that make them incidentally as just value, and they, worst case scenario, can block. Just very.
They're 1/1 tokens with humongous upside that they can be used as mana, and they're colorless, which some things care about. Having colorless creatures in play,
or pumping your colorless creatures.
Yeah,
like what's it called? The guide, something guide. Ruinate.
Yes,
Ruination Guide. There it is.
2 blue for a 3/2 with Devoid and Ingest. All good news.
Yep.
And other colorless creatures get +1/+0, which means your Scions are now 2/1s.
Which is serious at that
That's
point.
Serious business. Yeah. And your Despoiler is a 10/9.
And your Breaker of Armies is an 11/8.
11/8, yeah. So set's getting real big. Getting real big real fast.
Now, I mean, there are decks like the Landfall, Green-White's aggressive, and the Ally aggressive decks that might punish you for trying to go this route. I like the way they've got it set up, where a lot of the Devoidy, Ingesty, Eldrazi-ish, Scion-y, big stuff decks feel like they're trying to delay the game, go big, get value. And then you've got the Ally decks and the Landfall decks that are like the Zendikar.
And they're bringing up, like, for example, Bane of Balaged. This has... It's not quite Ingest. It's not quite Annihilator from the older Titans. It's kind of both.
Annihilajester.
Annihilajester. So it's a 7 mana 7/5. Great.
Sound.
It's not amazing. 7 mana 7/5 is not amazing.
No.
When you have a set with a bunch of ramp in it, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
When you turn 4 Hedron Archive, turn 5 7/5.
Balaged.
You know, again, that's a common and an uncommon.
Yeah.
I think the Hedron Archive is a common. It might be an uncommon. But in any case, it attacks. Your opponent doesn't sacrifice 2 permanents. They just exile 2 of them. They do get to choose. A lot of the time they're going to be lands.
Annihilator, though, was silly.
It's backbreaking. And now it's feeding your processors.
Yeah. Very, very strong card. But yeah, so, and then I like the way they've kind of got these 2 very different, almost opposing themes. It feels a lot like, what's it called? Scars
of Mirrodin?
Scars of Mirrodin. It feels a lot like that block where you had the kind of the Phyrexian sort of mechanic side of things, and then the Mirren.
But here the Eldrazi are a 2-tiered process. They have the little dudes on the ground, which pick up little niblets, and then they have the big processors that suck them out of the void for extra effect.
But then you've got the allies and the kind of the landfall
who are banding together, and using their knowledge of the terrain and their togetherness to try and overcome these 8/10s. Incidentally, I'm betting on the Breaker of Armies. I'll be honest, I'm betting on that thing. But
yeah,
you know,
it's a very, very nicely done set. In terms of the kind of the linking of flavor and mechanics, I think it's very, very nice. Something else I normally like to do. How many lands are you going to be playing?
I like to play, a lot of the time I like to play 17.
I think 17 is the default for most limited players.
I think I will be playing 18 here, and that's for 3 reasons.
I'm going to be starting at 18 as well.
One reason, maybe you're splashing, maybe you're converting some stuff.
Okay.
Second reason, you're playing 8 mana spells.
You're playing Breaker of Armies.
I know you want to Scion them and Hedron Archive and all that, but they still cost 8. And third reason is Landfall.
Okay.
That is relevant.
Yeah.
It means that drawing extra lands, as we said, isn't as bad as it usually is.
I have a 4th reason, which is Awaken. But there's a lot of good effects in this format, as we mentioned earlier, that will just mitigate the downside of drawing additional lands.
And there's a lot of reasons to have huge amounts of mana.
Plus, there's also the Blighted lands.
Yes.
And the Blighted lands and the other spell lands.
And you can awaken these.
You can. But the thing is, this set, from what I've been looking at this border, there's not a lot of heavy colour requirements. And so you can afford to play colourless lands. And these just, if you draw them late, or even if you draw them early and you just have them sitting there, they just help you with the flood.
Yeah. Well, this one doesn't really. But the Grim one
gets you 2 landfall triggers.
Blighted Cataract is amazing. Blighted Fen is amazing. Blighted Gorge is pretty amazing.
It's okay.
Blighted Steppe is not great.
Not good.
It's fine. It's fine. It's probably better than a Blight.
The thing you have to realize, right? Look at the blighted. What's the black one?
Fen.
Okay, so
No.
would you pay? Forgetting that land is sitting in front of you, Dennis. Would you pay 6 essentially mana for an edict effect?
No.
Okay, but now remember that it doesn't take up a spell slot.
Yeah, I'm sold.
Yeah, it's you have to understand, like, when you're building your deck, you've got 22 to 23 spells that you can put in there reasonably. So sometimes you're wondering, is this effect worth a card?
This doesn't take up a card in that sense.
Exactly. So
there is some cost associated because it doesn't produce coloured mana.
Yeah.
And assuming your deck isn't too mana intensive, which it shouldn't be, but assuming it's not, and to be honest, playing these when you're splashing probably is less of a good idea.
True.
But that is so valuable to squeeze spell value out of your non-spell cards.
Exactly.
It's why something like the Foundry of the Consuls is good.
So
or Rogue's Passage.
And once again, that's another reason just to load up a bit more on lands. I'm going to be starting at 18. I think there are decks where I'll play 19 if I have 1 or 2.
19?
I think there are decks where I'll play 19 if I have a lot of big stuff
and
one or two blighted lands and awaken cards. I think at that point I might, because hitting your land drops seems really important in this format.
Yeah, I definitely agree. While landfall and stuff take a little bit of the edge off Mana Flood, they put a little more salt on Mana Screw.
Exactly. So you want to be hitting land drops. So I'll be starting
at 18
and seeing what happens from there.
Okay, I can definitely get behind that.
Yeah. It might turn out that I'm wrong and you should just stick to 17. But I think in this format I'm going to be starting it. Now this, obviously, if you have a hyper aggressive deck, maybe start at 17.
Right.
What do you think of the format in terms of the speed?
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff, like, if you're spending turn 4 casting, a Hedron Archive,
you could just get run over
you could theoretically just get run over
by a Scythe Tiger?
Scythe Leopard.
Scythe Leopard.
I don't really think you'll be getting run over by that too much. But I don't like Scythe Leopard.
No?
It's a 1-mana 1/1, which is almost always going to be an attack if it's a 2/2 until it stops.
Yeah.
And then it's a terrible draw later.
Yeah.
But I mean, 2/2s aren't amazing draws later either.
That's true.
So it really is, like, it's already so much worse than a 1-mana 2/1.
Which, incidentally, there's a white one in the format.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called. I mean, yes, you can double landfall it if you
Evolving
Wilds or you whatever, anything like that, Rampant Growth, that kind of stuff. Then it's a 3/3. But I think the times when it's a 3/3 are going to outweigh the times when it's a 1/1.
You've got things like Inspired Charge in the format as well as a bunch of little token makers and that kind of thing.
This works with Scions.
There are definitely aggressive decks.
Right.
McKindy Side Runner. Just search Side Runner.
Yeah,
I'm not spelling McKindy for you.
Side Runner didn't work.
Slide Runner. I beg your pardon.
There you go.
I can't read.
There it is. 2-mana 2/1 trample that becomes a 3/2 trample. That's solid. That's much better. There's the green 2/2 that does it as well.
Exactly. So there are aggressive cards in the format. There's also a lot of good removal, cheap removal.
We already talked about Stasis Snare.
We talked about Stasis Snare. Smite the Monstrous doesn't really stop the aggressive decks, but Gideon's Reproach.
Whoops, there he is. Perfect.
Super strong. Sheer Drop kills tapped creatures.
Yep.
And has Awaken.
Titan's Presence is a colorless removal spell that's an instant. That's insane. Now you do need to have something reasonably sized to reveal.
You want to see 2 ways to punish. I've got 3 ways here sitting in front of me to punish small creature aggressive decks.
Okay.
And they're all common or uncommon.
Alright, hit me.
Royal's Retribution is the white one.
Royal. There it is. Wow. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so you load up on your 1-mana 2/1s.
And you chew them all up.
Exactly. Rising Miasma is the black version.
I didn't know you had such a miasma problem. I'm sorry. There it is. That's just, yeah.
And it's got Awaken as well, which is...
Relevantly, it's got Awaken 3.
Exactly, it won't kill your land.
Yeah.
And then the red one, obviously...
But it does resolve in order. Your land won't get -2/-2.
That's true.
Unless it's already a creature.
Yes.
Okay.
And then Rolling Thunder is the other one.
Of course. Rolling Thunder, incidentally, just unbelievably good card.
Bonkers card.
What is the fog that punishes... The safe passage that punishes...
No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention these cards first. So all 3 of those cards are very good at stopping...
At mopping up small creatures.
Fast, aggressive decks. You've got cheap removal like Games Approach, Grip of Desolation, which you've already mentioned, Processor Assault if you can get it going, that kind of thing. So I think, even though there are very good aggressive cards in the format, I think there's also a lot of good ways to stop them. So, whereas something like Magic Origins would have these cards like your Taupe and Free Blades and your... What's the knight called? The Green-White Knight?
Citadel Stone?
Citadel Stone. Would have those cards. They didn't have good ways to answer them, which meant the format became very fast. I think there's going to be the option to do fast decks in this format, but I think there's also a lot of ways to
mitigate
to slow it down. I think it's going to be fun. I think if you want to do aggressive, you can. I think if you want to go slow, you can.
Even Turn Against.
Turn Against just stops aggressive decks a lot of the time.
Yeah.
As well. You were asking me about Encircling Fissure.
Encircling Fissure. Oisin has all the cards written down. He's not just a genius. Encircling Fissure is a card that I think is amazing.
It's amazing for several reasons.
Oisin, but this is just a fog.
And haven't we said many times before in all of our videos that you shouldn't play fogs?
Why are we want to play this fog? Oh, I get it, because it's a fog that has Awaken. It's kind of cute.
That's not why.
No, but it does help, though.
It does help. Would you play straight up fog without Awaken?
Yeah, fog is sometimes a great card to have.
Yeah.
Sometimes fog is great.
So would you play green for a fog with Awaken 3 and a green for Awaken 3, say?
Hey, that's a 4-mana 3/3.
Yeah, that's decent.
I'd play that anyway.
Yeah. Well, you would be delighted about it.
It's a 4-mana 3/3 flash that fogs. That's a great card.
That is a very good card. Yeah, I'll buy it. Anyway, this is not a fog. No. Why is this not a fog, then?
Because it says prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn by creatures target opponent controls.
So it doesn't stop your creature. So you get a lot of very powerful effects out of this. Things like...
Hey, Oisin, you attack me with a bunch of your stuff. I cast Encircling Fissure, Awaken or no, and I eat all of your things. I stack block your 6/6 with my 3 2/2s, and your guy dies with my dozen.
The other option is, hey, you attack me with your board of stuff, I block and make favourable trades with my board of stuff, and then surprise you Encircling Fissures, and again you eat all my stuff.
And sometimes I get a 2/2.
Exactly, which is just value. So if your opponent is making questionable attacks, maybe be careful before you set up a bunch of trades, because this is it's a card that has huge potential for blowout.
Yeah, and it also has the utility where you can use it to just as a fog to just swing a race, which is totally fine. Something to keep in mind about Awaken: obviously, if you only have 5 lands, your land will become a creature, but it'll still be tapped.
Yes,
and it'll untap, and you can tap it for mana again, but you won't be able to block with it. That essentially costs 6 mana to do that.
To make a 2/2 that can also block. But yeah, it's a card that can break up board stalls. It's a card that can swing a race. It's just a very, very effective card. And it's one to watch out for. There's this weird little... I didn't write any cards down, so I'm just going to flick through. Something I noticed as well. There's this weird little life gain theme in Black-White.
Which is cards that incidentally gain life, and cards that reward you whenever you gain life.
Exactly.
Creatures that get flying, that get death touch, that get +1/+1, all this stuff.
Get counters, some of them as well. Serene Steward is a good example.
Serene Steward is 1 and a white for a 2/2. Soul. It's an ally. Super soul.
Yep.
This is, for example, this card has nothing to do with allies.
But it will still trigger your Core Blade Whirl.
Yeah. Whenever you gain life, you may pay white. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. This card is excellent. This card has got its fingers in so many little pots.
Yep. Very, very versatile card. And at its worst...
2 mana 2/2.
2 mana 2/2. So... Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little ways to gain life. There's something like...
Where's that 1 mana 1/3? The 2 mana 1/3.
The 2 mana 1/3. I'm looking for it now.
It's a 2 mana 1/3. 1 and a white for a 1/3 that you can...
Stonehaven Medic.
Stonehaven Medic. There we go. 1 and a white for a 1/3. Not the worst, but you're not good.
Yeah.
And you can pay white and tap it to gain 1 life.
So if you have mana left over, you can just gain a little bit of life. And if you need ways to activate your life gain triggery guys, he's a good way to do it.
Which is great.
I think it's not something to go super heavy on.
No,
it's definitely interesting.
I think if you could... I think what's going to happen is you're going to start picking cards like that one, the Serene Steward.
Or Tandem Tactics.
Tandem Tactics as well, yeah. Tandem Tactics.
So it's just a good card, but also has some life.
You can't choose the same creature twice.
True.
But gain some life. So you're going to start picking that and the Serene Steward. And once you get a couple of cards that happen to synergize like that, and you happen to be in black and white, you're like, well, maybe I could just kind of build this plan.
Yep. This leads nicely onto something I want to mention about this format as a nice comparison to Magic Origins, which we're leaving behind for Battle for Zendikar, which, by the way, I'm delighted about. This set, I could be wrong, but from what I'm feeling about this set, it reminds me of... Now, I'm not saying it's exactly like it, but it reminds me a little of Rise of the Eldrazi, in that it's built in such a way that synergy seems very important. You want to be building decks that will have good interactions between your cards, decks that have a solid plan, and maybe the whole draft a reasonable curve with combat tricks and removal strategy.
Might not be the
best way to go. You might want to be doing something like the little grindy, life-gainy black-white deck. You might want to do something like the ramp into massive colorless guys deck.
But the thing is, because a lot of it is based on colorless, and a lot of the payoff cards for a lot of the ramp and stuff are colorless, it's not pigeonholed into two-color pairs like Modern Masters 2 was.
Sure. The other thing that is important to note, and the main reason I think this is going to be the case, is most of the cards that will enable these synergy type strategies are reasonable on their own.
Case in point, Serene Steward.
When your build around strategies fall apart is when the cards are garbage by themselves, because you're either A, too afraid to draft them because you don't want to be left with a pile of crap and no
payoff,
or B, when you don't draw your cards in the correct order, your deck doesn't do anything.
Now, the issue with a card like Serene Steward is, say you want to build a life gain deck.
Everyone, the allies
want this. The aggressive white-red deck wants it because it's a 2-mana 2/2.
Yeah, and an ally.
And it's gonna, because it's so versatile, it makes it easier to build those decks, but it makes it harder to get this specific card.
Yeah. So
it makes it a safe first pick, but it makes it a difficult card to pick up late.
Exactly. So I think you want to, more than other sets, especially more than the last few sets we've seen. Like Cans was quite cool in terms of synergy wise,
but Magic Origins is real.
Magic Origins, Dragons of Tarkir, those kind of sets. A lot more than those. You want to be looking for, what does my deck do? Just not just what do the original individual cards do. And I think that's gonna be important. So to start with, what I'm gonna be doing, like, I'm not saying have an archetype in mind when you go in, or and I'm not saying you should know instantly how to build the black-white deck, because this is something that comes with time. But what I'm going to be doing is, say I get a couple of good processors. Well, I'm going to try and build this ingest process deck. Say I get some big colorless bomb. I'm going to try and build this ramp deck. You know, I'm going to start building towards the obvious themes and giving it a go for a while, and seeing what I like, what I don't. And if say I'm playing in the pre-release and my pool wants me to go curve and removal and combat tricks,
then you do that, and that's fine.
Yeah, but
you're just not sure that's like that was very much the de facto way to go in Origins, and you don't think that's the case here.
I think there's a lot of very cool room for experimentation. So if you want to try your own little synergy decks, if you want to try drafting those, I think it's more relevant in draft and sealed, because it's hard to do synergy.
It's hard to open that enough components in sealed.
But I think a good place to start is just pick a theme, and the nice thing about these cards is you don't have to stick too heavily to it. So maybe make your tiebreaker, does this help with the theme? Exactly. You know? Is this card have an ally or not? Yeah. Does this gain me a little bit of life? So does this exile something? Exactly. Does this help me stay alive to my big colors? My breaker does this interact with devoid creatures well? You know? And just make that your tiebreaker, but don't pick bad devoid cards over good colored cards just because you have a Herald of Kozilek. I have a question for you. What card in the set are you most excited to play with? I am most excited to play with Rolling Thunder, man. Really? I'm also least excited to play against Rolling Thunder. Yeah, okay. But that card's insane. The card I'm most... Can you guess? Is it Breaker of Armies? No, shut up about it. Breaker of Armies is sick. I really like Breaker, because look at him. Look at him. He doesn't give a shit. But my card that is that your guess? Because that's wrong. Okay. My card that I'm most excited to play with is Turn Against. Yeah. I love this card. I'm gonna slam my head against the wall a couple of times before the format's done, because it blows me out, because it's so hard to play around. Exactly. What are you gonna do? Not attack with anything? It's not a plan. Nope. It costs 5, so maybe they run out of stuff to cast. Maybe that last card in their hands a land. Oh, maybe they would have played it for landfall. I don't know. It's an uncommon. Maybe they just don't have it. Surprise, you're dead. But it is so close to... When it works, it's so close to 4 in a red, target player loses the game. Yeah. Like, it's so close to that. But just destroy 2 creatures. Now, you do have to have your opponent has to have 2 creatures that similarly line up against each other. Yeah. If they have a Breaker of Armies and a bunch of Scions, it's not great. No. But it's a very... If they have a Breaker of Armies and a bunch of Scions, you just use it on your turn and attack with their Breaker of Armies and wipe their board. That's pretty good. Because it's versatile like that. You can just use it as an active treason as well. You can use it to... Say, for example... you make a block and they use a combat trick. A Turn Against can blank the combat trick. Because a Turn Against, if a creature... It's not necessarily the best use of it. No, but if a Turn Against, if a creature changes sides of the table, it stops. It's removed from combat. Exactly. So it's just a very versatile card. And it's also a very powerful card. And
when I
that's a
say
rare
remove from combat, I mean it won't deal damage if after blocks have
Yeah,
been declared.
yeah.
But if you attack with 2 things, I can still steal one and block your guy.
Yes. But yeah, no, like you get cards like I'm trying to think of an example, but there are some cards that are, when they work, super powerful, but don't work often. This, when it works, is super powerful, and when it's not at its best, it's still fine.
It's a 5-minute act of treason isn't good, but it's not the end of the world.
Exactly.
And there are times when I'm a bigger fan of act of treason than most people.
Yeah.
Because I think there are times when it wins the game. Because there are.
Yeah.
There's times when it's deal 4 damage to target player and remove their best blocker.
Yeah.
In this case, this is not always, this has that potential, but it also has the destroy 2 opponents to target best creatures.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
So yeah, it's a very, very powerful card. One to watch out for. One to be thinking about when you're playing your games.
If your opponent makes some heavy, if you're going to make some heavy attacks.
It's going to be super strong and sealed as well. It's so powerful. Yeah,
I think we're good.
that's so. Like I say,
This is to get the wheels turning in your brain about Battle for Zendikar. You know,
if you think we're wrong about anything, if you think we're right about anything, if you have anything to add, that's what the comment section's for, and we love hearing your feedback. Like I say, like Dennis just said, it's to get people thinking about it and get involved.
I think the biggest correlation to getting better at Magic is time spent thinking about Magic. Obviously, the best way to do that is to play more Magic. But watching us two morons draft, that makes your brain think about Magic, and it ingrains these principles and these aspects of the game into your subconscious that make you a better player, that make you have better intuition.
Yep.
So there's a reason that a bunch of successful pros have been playing for 20 years.
Yep.
You know, there's the reason that exists. There's the reason that the same people win Pro Tours over and over again.
It's so get involved, get chatting to your friends, get chatting to each other.
If you want to send us an email, we'll reply to it. We have never not replied to an email. I don't think. Please don't call me out. If I didn't reply to your email, don't call me out. I'm sorry.
It's probably my fault.
Yeah, that's almost always Oisin's fault.
But yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for watching, and this will probably be in lieu of our draft for this week, because this is going to go up as soon. It's just going to go up early to get out before the pre-release.
Earlier today, we did a thing, and
these people don't care about that. A lot of these people aren't our regular viewers.
No,
so okay. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, watch this space.
We filmed Magic the Gathering game show. We did of my creation, which I thought was a lot of fun.
I had a great time,
and we filmed it at the War Chest.
Shout out,
which is one of our local game stores.
Find them on Facebook.
Do find them on Facebook, and we had a great time, and hopefully that'll be here within the next week or two.
Yeah.
But that's it for today. We hope you had a good time. I had a good time.
I had a great time,
and I can't wait to help battle for Zendikar. I'm going to battle for the Eldrazi.
I want the Eldrazi to win, man.
But yeah, see you there.